Welcome back, everybody. Monday Morning Briefing, episode number 46. It's actually Tuesday, September the 14th. Lost track of time yesterday and just got in here and had to do a bunch of office stuff. Ended up returning a bunch of voicemails that we had from us being out of the shop, and was finally able to kind of sift through a bunch of those, get those returned. We are working on getting back to the emails as well. So if you have emailed us, and I try to kind of monitor the emails, but if you have emailed us and we haven't responded yet, you might shoot me another one. Remind me just so it doesn't get lost down there towards the bottom there as we work through some of those. But this week's going good. We've gotten a lot of stuff done on the saddles. That's mainly what I've been focused on since I got back in here. I've got that one that I'm about to show you some of what we got done on there. Really want to get that one out as quickly as possible, and that way we can get some of these other trees pulled up and get some of those going. We're really running behind on a bunch of those this year, just for no other reason than just being not as organized as we should be. And that's always a problem in the shop. I'm sure everybody kind of fights that, trying to stay organized, trying to keep orders flowing as smoothly as possible. I'm 17 years in, I'm still fighting that. I feel like our system is pretty good, but we do get, I'm bad about just getting on a project and kind of just focusing on that, and then letting some things just kind of percolate over there on the side while I'm focused on that project. So when it comes to efficiencies and stuff and keeping your workflow nice and smooth, that's not really the best way to do it. I'm always trying to tweak and change our system so that orders come in smoothly and they go out smoothly. As far as the custom stuff, they usually do, because I only take so many. I don't just let the list keep growing and growing and growing. A lot of times we'll kind of slow down on what orders we're getting quotes out on and stuff like that, just so that we don't get too overloaded, because 100 small orders can turn into a real problem compared to, one or two big projects. So we try to keep those just kind of sifted out and try to keep a good level of workload that we can handle. And that's one of the things we want to talk about when we get into Christmas time, and we talked about it some last year too, is just trying to keep your order capacity, be honest with yourself on how many orders you can take, how many orders you can complete, and how much time you have in order to do all that. Because every year we all do it. We all take more than we probably should, and we end up working 24-hour days and stuff like that, just trying to get everything done, and it makes for a real stressful Christmas time. So as we get into that, we'll probably mention that again. We'll probably talk about that. But just before we really all get started and we all start getting flooded with Christmas orders coming into the fall, just be sure and try to sit down right now while you're not super covered up and you're not in that Super Bowl mode for Christmas time. Take a minute to kind of think be honest with yourself and think, how many belts can I do in a week? How many Bible covers, portfolios, wallets, whatever you're doing, whatever your project is, just kind of be honest with yourself and try to get a good number of how many of those you can make, and then just figure out, how many you can take with the time that we're going to have in order to do Christmas stuff. And that way you don't get in a bind, get all stressed out, and be spending your nights and weekends up here during the holiday season when you maybe have other things you'd like to go do and spend times with friends and family and stuff like that. But as far as what we got done last week, we did get the portfolio done that we mentioned in the last video. I ended up doing, if you saw it on Instagram, I ended up doing the interiors a real dark brown. I haven't ever done that before. I've always left my interiors just natural veg tan color. I don't even put tan coat on them or anything like that. I just put them in there natural. I think it looks nice. I think it looks professional. But this one here, I had cut this out, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks ago, and it was sitting on a bench, and all the parts were. And actually, kind of a little in the shop deal, I had this sitting out. Anytime you set leather out that's going to be sitting there for any extended period of time or whatever, you always want to turn it face side down, like the side that's going to show. You want to have it face side down, because a lot of times these fluorescent lights and stuff, they will stain, especially Herman oak leather. If you have, we've talked about it before, but if you have like a piece of leather and then you had something sitting on it, if it sits there for, say, even 5 days, 3 or 4 days, when you move that, when you come back and finally move whatever it was, another piece of leather, just whatever it is, you'll have a stain on there. You'll have a light stain. This leather here will be darker than whatever was sitting on top of your leather. So you want to always be sure and protect against that with raw leather. Once it's finished out, it usually doesn't do that. So my mistake was I had these sitting out. I just thrown them on a bench and honestly forgot about them. So we actually had some light staining on these interior pieces. I was just going to throw them away and just cut new ones, but then I thought, well, might as well try, just go ahead and dye them. That'd be kind of cool. So I went ahead and dyed them brown, and you can't see any of the light staining or anything like that. And I think it looks pretty neat because it's fairly light on the outside of the portfolio, and then when you open it, it's got the darker leather in there and stuff, and I thought that was kind of cool. but it ended up saving those pieces so that I didn't have to waste them, because I hate having to throw leather away because it gets stained or dirty or something like that. So that may be an option if you've got some leather for some reason that's got some staining on it or something from the lights in particular. You'll notice it. You've probably already had it happen in your shop where you've put some leather down and then come back and you'll see that light stain. Like I said, it usually takes 3 or 4 days of doing that. Sunlight will do the same thing if you've got it on a bench by a window, so be careful with that. But you may try staining it with dye and just see kind of what it turns out like. You very easily could have done this black. And actually, if I was going to do one of these and use a black leather, I would probably buy black leather. I probably would not dye it, just because, like I said, black dye is something that I'm always fearful of running or moving around on me and stuff like that. And so we'll do black background and stuff like that. But as you've seen, I mixed that with some brown dye. Maybe you could do that on there and do this, accomplish the same thing as well. But the other thing we worked on, as I mentioned before, we do have video coming for this little trash can, and it's just a little wastebasket, rubbish bin, whatever you want to call it, that will sit by our coffee bar at home, and that'll be just for the little coffee mixer, you know, little stirrers, or you know, creamer packets, sweetener packets, whatever, just to put a little bit of rubbish and have a little cool container to put it in. This video will be coming out hopefully pretty soon. I wanted it out last week, but what I decided to do on this one, I actually put a leather bottom in it, and this leather bottom is actually just glued in. And so I did that because it's fairly simple, and for no more than this little can is, I don't think there's any reason to try to do anything different. I thought that was plenty. It's in there really well, and so I think that's a really easy way to do it. So we did that option. And then I went ahead and made up another one where we'll line this and get this all prepped up as well, like we did this one, and then we'll braid the seams together on the back like we did there. But then we're going to do a wooden bottom, so I'll cut a piece of plywood. I'm not sure how thick, maybe 1/2 inch plywood, maybe a little thicker. I'll cut a circle out, and then we'll insert that just like we did this one. Insert that in there, and then we'll use, you can use little upholstery tacks, you can use the escutcheon nails, I think that's how it's pronounced. It's the little brass tacks with the rounded heads. You can use those, whatever, just something to hold that wooden bottom in there. That works really well too if you're going to do a larger waste paper basket, like for an office. You can do that same deal on the bottom. The option that I'm not going to do a video of, because I'm not talented enough in the skill set of hand sewing to be able to teach you that, is to sew a miter stitch along the bottom with a leather bottom in there, and actually sew that by hand all the way around there. If I was to try it, I'm sure I could accomplish it, but I don't feel confident enough to teach you how to do it in a video and call that education, because I'm very limited. I've maybe attempted to do something similar to that maybe once in my career, but I may try to learn that skill and then pass that on. But I'm sure there's some guys on YouTube who have done that. Armitage Leather, if you haven't checked them out, Nigel Armitage with Armitage Leather there on YouTube. I'm imagining he probably has a video or something that shows him doing a stitch down here at the bottom with a leather bottom in there on a rounded cylinder like this. And so I would advise you to check his videos out, because that man knows how to stitch boxes and bags and little areas like that really well, and you probably learn a lot from doing it that way. But we're going to do it the easy way for the video, just so that it's simple. I think they're a fun project. Working on the pattern pack for that as well, so hopefully we can get that created and get them printed, and the digital ones, whatever we're going to do, get all that ready to go so we can get that video out to you as quickly as possible. Something else, I need to make a correction, and it's been a long time needing to be doing this, but if you've got a Cobra Class 4 and you've seen our video on changing out the stirrup plate, changing to the stirrup plate, putting the stirrup plate in that machine and using that, that video is done really well. We've gotten a lot of good feedback on that video, both from Leather Machine Co. as well as just people who have watched it and emailed me, and it helped them to be able to change their plates out on their machine, because you've got to take another little piece out. You got to pull the shuttle out and change a little piece in there. So that video's I'll walk you through how I do it. I'm not a mechanic on these machines, not an expert on these machines, but the way I do things is just kind of do them, and they seem to work. And so we did that video to kind of show that. The one mistake that I made in the video was the naming of the plates, because if you buy the attachment package when you get that machine, you will get a bunch of different attachments for things. There's things in there that I don't even know what it's for, and probably will never use it, but there's a bunch of good stuff in there that I do use, but there's just a few of them that I don't. But these two plates are in there when you get the attachment package. On my other machine, I had ordered what was called a stirrup plate, and it came to me and it looked just like this little plate here. And in the video, this plate is what I understood to be a stirrup plate. Apparently, I had it wrong, and this is the stirrup plate. This is actually a holster plate. And some people did correct me. They emailed me and said, hey, you actually got them backwards, but you know, whatever, and just letting you know. And I've had a couple saddle makers that I reached out to because I did talk to Leather Machine Co. to make sure, like, do I have these backwards? And like, yes, actually you do. And so I actually texted Terry Henson and was visiting with him and was like, am I wrong on that? And he said, yeah, you got it backwards. He said, but I actually don't own a stirrup plate. All I have is the holster plate, and that's all I've ever used. And it will work on stirrups. It does work. That's all I've used. That's the one I had for my other machine as well. It worked fine. But since I've found that out, that I had them backwards in that video, I've been using this one as a stirrup plate, and it actually does work a little bit better. I think it's a little bit easier to manipulate the stirrup around there, and it gives you just a little bit more lift because the height on them is a little bit different. And so I think you get by with either one. I apologize if that's confused you. I've had a couple people that called Leather Machine Co. and ordered a stirrup plate and got this one and thought that they had the wrong one shipped to them. No, I actually had it wrong in the video, and I don't know how to fix that because that's such an old video, and so it's incorrect on there. But I just thought I'd do an update on the Monday video. Maybe that'll help whoever's watching these. At least they'll understand why I've got them backwards. But you can use either one. But like I said, I've been using this one and I really like it. So if you're ordering a stirrup plate from Leather Machine Co. or anybody else for your machine or for any other machine, this is actually what it's going to look like. Again, they both work great. I haven't had any trouble using either one of them for stirrups, and maybe depending on the style of stirrup, this one may cause a little bit of an issue, but I have never had that. The interesting thing too with these plates is on their certain bag construction and different things like our shave kit, I actually sewed one up with the stirrup plate on the machine and sewing the gusset in there, and it actually made it a little bit easier, or actually a lot easier. So the Cobra Class 4, like I said, it's a little more involved on changing the plates, because on my Ferdco, which is, you know, that machine, all you did was just take the two screws out, put the new plate on, and go to stitching. This one here, it's got a bottom feed that you have to remove in order for it to stitch, and like I said, if you watch that video, you'll see me change that. But even having to go through that little bit more steps, I think it's worth it when you're sewing something like a shave kit, especially a pair of stirrups, certain holster types, styles, things like that. It gives you a lot more versatility when you are sewing that. It makes things a lot easier. So keep that in mind. If you don't have the attachment package for your machine, buying one or two of these plates, I would recommend getting both of them, the stirrup and the holster, so you have both options. Get those plates, and it'll really help you in some of the construction for certain types of different, you know, three-dimensional type items. If you're doing flat work, you don't need them, but you will get into a situation where having those plates might help. So hope that clears it up. Like I said, my mistake. Been meaning to mention that for quite a while, and we thought we'd do it on the Monday video and get it out of the way. And also on the digital gauge for the leather thickness gauge, fellow that sent that to us did shoot us an email, and Tony, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for sending that to us. He sent us a digital gauge as a gift, and he was excited to see that we finally got it. He hadn't heard anything, and which we were kind of, like I said, we were down, and I'm not sure how long it took to get here, but we really appreciate it. I've actually used it a couple times in here already just to kind of gauge some different types of leather and make sure that they were the same on a project I was working on, so it was really handy. So I really like having everything in there. I'm sure I'll find tons of uses for it, so appreciate it. It was really neat. At the end of last week, I ended up starting to cut up some of the leather too for our belt material pack, so we're getting those refilled. Probably going to end up with some more blemish grades on there, so if you guys prefer the blemish grade for your projects or whatever, we will have some of those. I don't know how many of those things. Like I said, I just kind of grade them as I'm cutting them, but we've got a pretty good pile. I've got to cut liners, and then we'll get the website updated with the new quantities on what we've got. We've still got plenty of bifold material packs. We have some more goat skin we need to cut up as well, so if you're looking for the bifold material packs, they are on there, and it'll show the quantity and stuff, but we'll keep those, try to keep those filled up through Christmas, and that way we've always got plenty of those. And we will be adding some wristlet purses. So if you've done the wristlet purse project that we did a project video for, and if you have that pattern pack, so we'll be offering some of the wristlet purse material pack. So it'll include, the main part of the bag, the whatever chap leather. We've got a few different styles. We've got some more leather coming to cut some more of those out of just some different style, either oil tan, or we've got some shrunken bull hide that's pretty cool, and different things like that. We may get a few exotics cut out just to have a few on there. But then it'll come also with the zipper piece, the top panel, and both of the tooled panels. I call those yokes, but the top yoke for that purse. So you'll have to get your own zipper, just because I can't guarantee that I can get enough zippers in here from where I get them from, which I get them on Amazon. We put an article on the website showing which ones I get, but you will have all the leather material in order to build that bag. As far as the wristlet strap, some people do a braided strap. Some people do a little 1/2-inch strip or whatever. Some people make them a crossbody instead of a wristlet. So there won't be a material in there for that. You'll have to cut that yourself. But as far as for the bag, it'll have all that material in there. So we'll hopefully get those on the website this week as well. And that way you'll have access to those, and we'll see how they do. That's a set of dies that we had made before Waco, and it was working out really good. I've made 2 or 3 of them, and the dies fit really nicely, and everything kind of matches up well. So, and cutting that, especially the zipper piece, cutting that out by hand is not fun. So cutting it out with a clicker die makes a big time saver, and it'll keep you from having to fiddle with that and cut that out. So we're gonna hop over here, and I'm gonna show you what we did on saddles last week. All right, so this is a roping saddle that we're working on. It's going to be a quarter breed floral, so basically everything's rough out except for, like, we've got this little frog right here, and then the back of the cantle. Can't really see it real well, but you've probably seen it in some of our Instagram pictures. But we've got the cantle completely tooled and everything on there. And then we did an inlaid seat. And we did also turn out a video on how to do an inlaid seat in a saddle. And so the video that just posted before this one is the video showing how I do an inlaid seat. That's been a little bit of a request. I've had quite a few emails of people asking how we do an inlaid seat. I don't use any padding in ours. You can watch that video and see the exact process how we do it. But I think they turn out well. We're going to go ahead and tool all this. Once this seat is actually glued in and everything's ready to go, we'll tool the padded seat, the inlaid seat, probably last. And it's gonna really show nice. It'll have a tooled front here as well. So that's kind of what I call a quarter breed. So the swells, the cantle back, if you're going to do a frog, we'll do that, as well as the stirrups. So we've got the stirrups put together here. So I'll actually be changing the stirrup plate on the machine and sewing these stirrups up for this saddle. And so a quarter breed's really nice. It just gives you a little bit of tooling. It's not too much, and it's still basically a rough out saddle, but it's got a little bit of chrome on it. It's got a little bit of decoration, not too much overkill. And I think it's just a really good look. So that's where we're at. So I've got the seat ready to go in. We are going to do a video on how we glue this seat in, because everybody does this different. When you've got a loose seat, it's kind of one of those deals of how you get it in here and get it glued in right and all that. Everybody has a different process. I'm going to show you mine, just show you how I go about doing that. But before we do that, we'll have to tool our front. So I went through and I marked where the seat was going to go. And then we got all our tooling lines kind of marked in here with a pencil, so I know where the tooling is going to go. The tooling on this saddle doesn't have a hard border, and so it's just the floral. So that line just gives me an idea of where I need to stop my vine work or flower, leaf, whatever's going to go on there. And we'll get this front tool. That'll be the next step, and then we'll be ready to glue the seat in. And then, like I said, we will turn out the video when I glue that in and kind of show you how I do that. Well, we've got it kind of moving along real nice. We've got stirrup leathers and fenders that are hanging up over there on the wall, and then we've got all the small parts, the rosettes, the hobble straps, and then all the rig catchers and stuff. And so it's coming along. It'll be getting close. We've got the flank girt done and all the billets and everything else. So this saddle is not too far out from being completed. We are waiting on some conchos. We got Campbell's Bits and Spurs and Amarillo making the conchos for this saddle, have the man's brand on it, and so they'll be here probably right after the saddle's finished, and then it'll be ready to ship out. But that's what we've been up to in the shop, working on saddles, working on some small projects, turning out some quotes and stuff. I know a lot of people like to ask what is the process on an ordering process, and kind of how do you go about doing that and handling that. Well, I've had many conversations with craftsmen one-on-one as far as like how they take their orders, and do they take a deposit, do they take full payment, do they take any money down. I'm gonna give you a little bit of advice when it comes to taking orders. You need to be sure whatever your process is that you are getting some kind of money up front, because everything you're doing usually is custom. and you can really get yourself into a position to where you're building things and people aren't picking them up. And so you've got to kind of be careful at the point of sale. So at the time when you're talking to a customer and you're taking an order, you just got to be sure that you're taking care of your customer, but you're also protecting yourself, because you can have a lot invested in these projects. Portfolio, you've got a lot of time. There's substantial cost and material on those things, but the time is most important because of the amount of time you're going to spend tooling it and edging it and doing all the stuff, putting it together. And if that item's not picked up and paid for, then you've wasted a lot of money and a lot of time. And so what you want to do is set up a process, set up a system that allows you to be sure that you're protected, that they're going to be able to pick it up, that you got your material costs covered in the very least. A lot of guys do a half down. A lot of people do that. I personally don't like to do that because it splits the accounting for me. It's too much to track. So, I mean, how much did somebody put their deposit down? I've got to remember that. And then we get the balance, and then plus the shipping and stuff like that. I would rather figure all of that up at the front. The most important first thing is the customer knows what the item's going to cost. So we're both in agreement that, I'm going to charge you this to do this project. They agree to that. And that way we're both on the same page. We both know what it's going to cost, and we go ahead and do that, and they agree to it. And most customers don't mind that. If they're ordering something custom and you've come recommended, or they've been following you, they know you, whatever, a lot of people will understand that. And because if they don't pick it up or they don't pay for it, it's not like you can sell it to somebody else because it's got their initials or their brand or it's their size. There's a lot of things that go into that. So when it comes to small custom stuff, small custom items, we take payment up front. 100%. That really also helps that customer. So it helps you and the customer, so that you've given them a price. They know what the item's going to cost. Everybody's in agreement. It's a good transaction. Then you can go, and your responsibility at that point then is to turn that product out in a timely fashion and get it to them. Keep that confidence level up with your customer and be sure they get their product. But as long as you do that, it makes it a lot easier, because I've seen a lot of craftsmen go through. They'll get an order for a job. They don't give them a really for sure price on what they think it's going to cost, because they're not really sure. They're not really bidding ahead of themselves or bidding out the job first. And then when they get the item done, they put a price on it. And sometimes you'll find a customer has sticker shock. They had no idea it was going to cost that much. And then, there's some conflict there. There's some friction there, or they just don't pick it up because they don't want to pay that much or whatever. Versus if you talk to them at the sale point and told them, hey, that portfolio is going to be X amount, they know that, and if they don't want to pay that much, they'll voice that opinion at that point. And then you may not get the order because they don't want to pay that price, but then at least you didn't build the item, waste the time, waste the material, and all that kind of stuff to build something that's not going to get picked up. So we could dive into that and go down that rabbit hole for a long time, but that's going to be my suggestion is when it comes to taking orders, especially coming into Christmas, think about this, get your pricing structure down. Be sure, even if you take a deposit for half or whatever, at least that gives the customer an option or an opportunity to know what that item is going to cost. So be sure you're bidding those out and giving customers a price at the start. I don't prefer to do, hey, it'll be between this number and this number. I'd prefer to give them, I'm going to do it for this much. And then that way it's concrete, it's good, there's no surprises on your end, their end, whatever. Everybody knows what something's going to cost. Because a lot of people just don't know. They don't know that a belt's going to be that much. They see the stuff hanging in the Western wear stores and they see those prices. That's what they're used to a lot of times. So you just want to be sure everybody's on the same page. But be sure and at least get a deposit, because you're going to have material costs in there. And if you don't have any kind of collateral or anything else, there's nothing that you can have that's going to guarantee that item's going to be picked up and paid for. And so you don't want your business struggling just because you can be real busy and building lots of stuff but not getting much of it picked up and have a cash flow issue in your business. So you want to be sure you got something set up that kind of protects you against that, because I would rather not make money than lose money. And I'd rather not have anything to build than to build a bunch of stuff that's not getting picked up. So we don't have a big problem with that anymore these days. I've just had a couple calls and a couple emails that I've visited with folks over the last 2 or 3 months on taking payment. And we did have some conversations like that in Waco as well. And so I thought I want to bring it up here just so that everybody knows, because it's hard. Everybody's just excited to get an order. You got somebody that wants a pretty cool item. You want to build that item, and you kind of get excited, and and a lot of times too, when you're starting out, you may be a little nervous to give them the price, and you kind of know what you want to charge for it, but it makes you kind of nervous, so you don't want to talk about money. Talk about money at the front, because it's a lot easier to deal with, talk to that customer at the sales point than it is at the end when you're both standing there and you're hoping to get paid and they're hoping to get it cheaper. So just do that at the front, get at least a deposit so that you're kind of protected, and then move forward. But that's all I got for you this week, guys. We're going to get back at it. I've got to get a bunch of stuff done today, get a bunch of stuff knocked out and on the website. Hopefully tomorrow, maybe Thursday, we'll have those quantities updated and some of the new products on there as well, so you can check that out. But I really appreciate y'all. Be sure and sign up for the Leathercraft newsletter at dgsaddlery.com, and we'll see you next week in the Monday Morning Briefing.